That one's called Hu Asher by Rabbi Baruch Chait from his album, the final song from the album Salonika, Volume 5. How's everybody doing? Are you excited? We're making a SIYUM today, a celebration of finishing our journey through Tractate Yevamos, the 14th volume of the Talmud. I've got something ready for a l'chaim when we reach that point. I hope you do too. Let's light up the darkness. Big apologies to the people who are watching this later on YouTube. You might have wanted to watch it live on YouTube, but something is wrong between the Mevo camera, the Vimeo video broadcast system, and YouTube. Somewhere it's not talking to each other. I tried everything in the troubleshooting last night after the show. Obviously, we're streaming to Facebook. I don't know why we're not able to go simultaneously to YouTube like we normally do, but I saw that other people in the Mevo user group are having the same problem. So please, Mevo, Vimeo, YouTube, get your act together so that we can reach our people as we're accustomed to do. All right, who is with us on a Thursday? As we make our SIYUM on Yevamos, Yehudit in South Carolina, wishing everyone a congratulations. Tom in PA, Renee in Indiana, Nancy in North Carolina, James in Indianapolis, Bella in Florida, Sharon in Fort Worth, Texas, Lucy in Minnesota, Melissa in Great Neck, Stephen in Dover, New Hampshire, Shandor in the Bronx, Paul in the Great Northwest, Bill is in mid-Missouri, the most anticipated SIYUM so far. Pauline in Chicagoland, Michelle in Southern Indiana, Paula says shalom, John in Maine, Luis in Northern California, John says I sound better a little bit, right? I really want to get over this kind of cough and congestion. Thank God it's not corona. Before I go to Israel on Sunday, so I've been taking care of myself, the fluids, the decongested, the whole thing, but especially getting a lot of sleep. So hopefully I'll be all right. And Diana in New York, and Werner in Queensland, Australia. Wow, from the other side of the globe. Welcome, welcome. Great to have you with us. Okay. Better, not perfect. Okay, today's episode of AT Daily is sponsored by Leah Mark, who says, please make it in memory of Shalom Alter Mark, a Holocaust survivor who respected and cared for every Jew whom he met after the war. Respectfully, Leah. Leah, what a beautiful dedication. May our learning today accrue to the merit of Shalom Alter Mark, who I guess is your relative, maybe your dad. And may you be showered in blessings, you and all your loved ones. and the merit of enabling us to share more Torah with more people around the world. Thank you for sponsoring today's episode of AT Daily. All right, page 122, the final page. We're actually going to do a few Mishnas here at the very last this page. We're continuing our discussion of Mishnah number 5, and we're also going to cover Mishnahs 6, 7, and 8 here in the final chapter, chapter 16. We'll get into that, and then when we complete our journey through the page, and thus through the chapter and the tractate, we'll make the Hadran, the sort of ritual formula that we read at the end of every tractate. And then we'll jump right in and read just the very first line of the first Mishnah of Tractate Kesuvos, or some say Ketubot, but it's the same word, and this is the laws of marriage specifically, and the laws of marriage, and specifically the laws of the marriage contract. Very interesting tractate that we are embarking on. All right, we pick this up at the bottom of 121b. And as we saw, this whole chapter is about, since we learned over the course of this chapter, this is all about widows and what happens to a widow, and does she have an obligation to marry her brother-in-law, or does she perform chalitza? And sometimes that's not even a yibum situation, which is the subject of our tractate, but whether a woman is free to marry at all. And this is one of the very few cases in Jewish law where we accept the testimony of a single witness. Everything else requires 2 witnesses. But here in chapter 16, we're talking about, okay, we accept the testimony of 1 witness, prefer 2 witnesses or more, but what exactly do they need to see so that they can testify that they have seen the man die, so that his wife is now free to get on with her life and remarry? So Mishnah number 5 talks about hearsay, that if somebody heard an individual mention that a certain person had died, that in certain cases we can rely on that to enable the wife to remarry. So there was a certain person who was going around saying, and this was a non-Jew, right? And the big distinction being made here in terms of the testimony of Jews and non-Jews is that at the time that these laws were being made, and tragically still, there's a lot of people in the world who hate Jews and would, do ill onto the Jews if they had a chance. So we're going to be careful about accepting their testimony in Torah matters. But also because the non-Jew is not bound by the laws of the Torah. And is not going to have the same respect and awe of the judges of the Beis Din, of the rabbinic court, that a Jew would have. And so that's another reason why there's going to be differences in whose testimony is accepted and under what circumstances. So there was a certain non-Jew who was going around saying, who is from the house of Chasa? Chasa has drowned. Right? So he's bringing terrible news that this man Chasa has drowned. And Rav Nachman said, by God, the fish have eaten Chasa. And the Gemara relates, due to Rav Nachman's statement, although he did not issue a court ruling permitting it, Chasa's wife went and married, and no one said anything to her to protest her action. And Rav Ashi said, learn the following from this incident, that which the sages said, that if a man fell into an endless body of water, his wife is prohibited from remarrying. And this applies only ab initio, or in Hebrew, lechatchila. But if someone married her, we do not take her away from him, right? So this concept keeps coming up. Latin, I guess, is it Latin or Greek? Ab initio. But in Hebrew, lechatchila, in the first instance, we would not let her marry. We would want her to wait because maybe this man will show up. But if she did go ahead and remarry, we don't make her leave the second husband. Because this testimony is good enough to at least let her stay in that marriage. Maybe she shouldn't have got into it, but if she got into that second marriage, we pray that this husband, won't show up, in which case she'll be prohibited to the second and to the first. Okay, so there are those who say that Rav Nachman actually issued a ruling. There are those who say that Rav Nachman actually issued a ruling and allowed his wife to marry. ruling, not just he made a comment that poor Chasa has died and she relied on that. So he said, I guess Rav Nachman said, Chasa is a great man. If it was so that he emerged from the water, then the incident would have generated publicity. And since nothing was heard from Chasa in a long while, it can be assumed that he died. I mean, if he emerged from the water, we would expect that he would come home. But maybe not. Maybe he didn't, things weren't so happy at home, and that was his, this near drowning would have been enough for him to run away, and he would have committed pseudocide, right? An apparent suicide or an apparent death that wasn't that. He would have used the opportunity to run away. But because he was a well-known man, he wouldn't have got away with that. People would have noticed that it was Chasa leaving the water, and word would have come back. And the Gemara comments, no, that is not so. It is not different if he was a great man and if he is not a great man. If a woman remarried based on testimony that her husband drowned in an endless body of water, after the fact, yes, she may remain married, but she may not marry ab initio. And it doesn't matter whether he's a great man or not. What's dispositive here is that they saw him drown in an endless body of water. Normally, she's prohibited to remarry because maybe the man emerged somewhere out of sight. Maybe he's healing, maybe he had amnesia, maybe he's in a coma, but we can't be sure that he's dead because we didn't see the body, and in an endless body, and if it was a pond, then we would have seen it. If someone emerged, we would have seen it. But if it's a river and he was swept downstream, who knows? So the Gemara relates that a certain Gentile said to a Jew, harvest the fodder and give it to my animals on Shabbos, and if not, I will kill you like I killed so-and-so the Jew, for I said to him, cook me a pot of food on Shabbos, and he did not cook it for me, and so I killed him. Now, the wife of the missing Jew, right? So this Gentile says to a Jew, obviously it's in a time of persecution, where the Gentile can just freely say, I killed one of your countrymen, and I'm going to kill you too. Unless you do exactly what I tell you, and in this case, violate your Sabbath. But in passing, he mentioned that he had already killed a Jew for not obeying his orders to violate Shabbat. And the wife of the man who was missing heard this, obviously was bereaved. It was a terrible thing to hear. But the point is that in passing, this Gentile had said, and I already killed that other Jew. So that other Jew's wife now says, okay, well, now we know what happened to my husband. He was killed by this Gentile whom we are powerless to, arrest or try or execute because it's a time of danger. But at any rate, now I know what happened to my husband. Allow me to remarry based on this hearsay, which we've said we accept the Gentiles' report that a Jew has died as long as the Gentile isn't offering it as testimony. If he just says it offhandedly in passing, that's the rule we learned yesterday, then he'd have no reason to say that other than just to relate a story that happened, and that's why it can be accepted to allow the woman to remarry. So the wife of the missing man heard the Gentile say that he killed her husband, and so she came before Abaye to ask if she was permitted to remarry. And he deferred the ruling in her case for 3 pilgrimage festivals, right, like Passover, Shavuos, and Sukkot, on which the sages gathered together to study. But he could not resolve this uncertainty on any of those occasions, presumably by discussing it with other sages, and they couldn't reach a conclusion whether they should allow her to remarry or not. They're also stalling because maybe the guy wasn't dead and he'll show up. Now, Rav Ada bar Ahava said to her, go before Rav Yosef, whose knife is sharp, i.e. he has keen insight into halachic matters, and ask him to decide your case since these other sages won't give you a decision. So she went before Rav Yosef, and he resolved the case. And now we're on 122a, based on this baraisa. With regard to a Gentile who was selling fruit at the market and said, these fruits are from the first 3 years of the tree's growth, orla, or they are from azeka, land that is tilled on the sabbatical year, the produce of which is prohibited to eat. Or if he said they are 4th year produce, which is prohibited to eat outside of Jerusalem, if he says any of these things, he has said nothing of consequence. His statement is not deemed credible, since it is possible that he only intended to enhance the reputation of his own goods, as he thought that his produce would fetch a higher price if he described it in that fashion. So Rav Yosef derived from this baraisa that in the case of the missing Jew, the Gentile's statement could not be relied upon, as he may have stated it only to promote his own agenda. In other words, the Gentile said, I'm going to kill you unless you do this job for me, and you should believe me because I killed another Jew too. Now, he might not have killed that Jew. He might just be lying in order to make his threat stronger so that he could, basically get slave labor out of this Jew and have him violate Shabbat. He doesn't care. The Jew said, I can't do it for you because it's Shabbos. And the Gentile, in this case, probably Roman, says, well, I don't care about Shabbat, and I'm going to kill you like I killed that other guy. Now, we can't rely on this statement that he killed the other guy, because right now, he wants this Jew to do his work for him. So Abba Yudan of Sidon said, an incident occurred involving a Jew and a Gentile who traveled on the road. And later the Gentile came and said, alas for the Jew who was with me on the road, for he died, and I buried him. And the sages relied upon his statement and allowed the wife to remarry. So here's another statement from a Gentile, one we do accept, right? Because he is just relating kind of in an offhanded manner. He's not bringing testimony in order to allow the wife to remarry. He's just telling a story that happened. He doesn't have an agenda at that moment like the one who was making a threat. And there was another incident involving a group of people who had been taken prisoner. Nina, if you're listening right now, honey, please bring me a glass of water. I just really need it. I should have brought my own. Thank you. And there was another incident involving a group of people who had been taken prisoner, each of whom was shackled with a collar around his neck. And they were walking to Antokia. And sometime later, a certain Gentile came and said, alas for the group of collared people, for they died, and I buried them. And the sages allowed their wives to marry. And there was yet another incident involving 60 people who were walking to the siege of Beitar. And later a Gentile came and said, alas for those 60 people who were walking on the road to Beitar, for they died, and I buried them. And the sages allowed their wives to marry. Again, here the sage is, just really being a good human being and bringing this terrible news. Nobody wants to hear it. No one wants to hear bad news, but it's necessary to report this news. Thank you so much, honey. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shach v'chayru. Okay. And about this incident at Beitar, so Beitar was the scene of this terrible battle, right? And where the slaves, this is a Roman thing, that they would put an iron collar with like a dog tag on the collar to sort of mark the slaves. And it is likely that the men who were being led to the siege of Beitar were war captives assigned to forced labor to assist the Romans during the prolonged siege of Beitar. And given the harsh conditions of the forced labor and the war, it is not surprising that they all died. That concludes our discussion of Mishnah number 5. Here's Mishnah number 6. I'm going to turn on the AC. Okay, Mishnah number 6. Witnesses may testify. Maybe that should be clear. Witnesses may testify that an individual died even if they saw his corpse only by candlelight or by moonlight. And the court may allow a woman to marry based on the statement of a disembodied voice proclaiming that her husband died. And there was an incident with regard to a certain individual who stood at the top of a mountain and said, so-and-so, the son of so-and-so from such and such a place died. And they went and they found no person there, but even so they relied upon this statement and they allowed the wife of the individual who was declared dead to remarry. And there was another incident in Tzalmon, a city in the Galilee, where a particular man said, I am so-and-so, the son of so-and-so. A snake bit me, and I am dying. And they went and found his corpse, but they could not recognize him. And yet they went ahead and allowed the wife to marry based on what he had said in his dying moments. A little bit similar to the classic film noir DOA. And that's Mishnah number 6. So Rabbi Bar Shmuel said, it was taught in a Baraisa that Beis Shammai say, the judges of a court may not allow a woman to marry based on the statement of a disembodied voice. What is this disembodied voice, where you hear a voice and you don't know who spoke? Now, is that something supernatural? Maybe. But it could be simply that the person, is it kind of like one of those situations, I don't know, where there's caverns and then there's echoes and you can hear a voice clearly, or maybe from another jail cell where you can hear a voice clearly but not see the speaker. Nothing supernatural about that. But there's also the supernatural possibility, and the sages are going to discuss this. So Rabbi Bar Shmuel said, it was taught in a Baraisa that Beis Shammai say, the judges of a court may not allow a woman to marry based on the statement of a disembodied voice. They require actual testimony of a visible human being. And Beis Hillel say, the judges may allow a woman to marry based on the statement of a disembodied voice, which is what our Mishnah says. And the Gemara asks, what is Rabbi Bar Shmuel teaching us here? This is simply our Mishnah, since the decisive ruling follows Beis Hillel's opinion. So the Gemara answers that he teaches us this, that if an anonymous Mishnah or Baraisa is found that states that judges may not allow a woman to marry under such circumstances, it is simply the opinion of Beis Shammai, and we do not follow it. We follow Beis Hillel, who says we do allow a woman to remarry based on the testimony of a disembodied voice. Now, with regard to the incident where they heard a disembodied voice, but they went and found no person there, which is mentioned in the Mishnah, about this the Gemara asks, perhaps it was a demon. And Rav Yehuda said that Rav said, they saw that he had the form of a person, so they knew it was not a demon. Demons don't look like people, and according to this. So the Gemara asks, well, they, i.e. demons, also can appear similar to people if they want to take on that shape. And the Gemara answers, well, they saw that he had a shadow. And the Gemara asks, but demons also have a shadow. And the Gemara answers, well, it was a case where they saw that he had a shadow of a shadow. And the Gemara asks, well, perhaps demons also have a shadow of a shadow. And Rabbi Hanina said, Yonatan, the demon expert, said to me, they, demons, have a shadow, but they do not have a shadow of a shadow. I don't know what a shadow of a shadow is, and it is not explained. There is a note here on the law of this. If people heard a voice saying so-and-so died and they searched the areas from where the voice emanated, but they found no one, the court may allow his wife to marry. It's not that they must. There's going to be other circumstances, but the court is permitted to allow this woman to remarry based on this. Now, if the voice was heard in a field or pit where one might suspect the presence of a demon, then one may not rely on the statement. In a case where there is any suspicion that the voice might be unreliable, it may not be relied upon. And this applies even if the listeners saw the shadow of a shadow, which indicates that the voice came from a human and not from a demon. Why? Because we are no longer experts in the area of demons. It seems that according to the Rambam, in a period of danger, one need not be concerned about this, about demons. And if you heard a voice say something very specific, like such and such a person died, and this guy's been missing for a long time, we can rely on it. There's going to be a totality of the circumstances issue so that they can, what kind of a voice is that? What exactly did it say? But you can see that the sages are being very lenient so that a woman should not become an aguna, a stranded woman waiting for a husband that never comes home because he's dead, and she's stuck and can't remarry and get on with her life. The Gemara asks, and perhaps this voice, perhaps it was a rival wife or some other enemy of the man's wife who cried out that her husband was dead and then fled. Why? In order to trick her into disgracing herself by remarrying while her husband was still alive. And the Gemara answers, the school of Rabbi Yishmael taught, during a period of danger, one may write and give a bill of divorce to a woman, although the witnesses do not know the husband, because we do not raise many suspicions at such a time. And this case was similar to a period of danger, in that they did not find witnesses that her husband died, and therefore the court did not require further clarification. And that concludes our discussion of Mishnah number 6. Now Mishnah number 7. Rabbi Akiva said, when I descended to Nehardea in Babylonia to intercalate the year, to decide whether they needed a leap month or not, I heard that the sages in Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel, do not allow a woman to remarry based on the testimony of a single witness, except for Yehuda ben Bava. Wait, did I skip a line? Yeah. Rabbi Akiva said, when I descended to Nehardea in Babylonia to intercalate the year, I found the sage Nehemiah of Beit Deli. And he said to me, I heard that the sages in Eretz Yisrael do not allow a woman to remarry based on the testimony of a single witness, except for Yehuda ben Bava. And I told him, yes, this is so. This should sound familiar. We've already encountered this Mishnah earlier. It was used to help prove a different matter. But here's the actual Mishnah. So Rabbi Akiva's in Bavel, in Babylonia. He goes to Nehardea, and one of the sages there says to him, I heard that in Israel, they're not allowing a woman to remarry based on the testimony of a single witness. Is that right? Akiva says, yes. And he says, and the only one who disagrees with the majority is this Yehuda ben Bava? And Rabbi Akiva confirms that. And so now this sage, Nehemiah, says to Akiva, tell the sages in my name, you know that the country is confounded by army troops, and I cannot come myself. That's added as an elucidation. The last time we discussed this, he just said, you know this country is full of troops, and I cannot come. You know that this country is full of troops. Tell them that you can marry on this testimony of a single witness. And back then they questioned, did he say it's full of troops because in a time of danger you can rely on the testimony of one witness, or did he say it's full of troops and I can't come myself, I, Nehemiah, go to Israel and testify that the sages had a tradition which seems to have been forgotten, that a woman can rely on the testimony of a single witness. And at that time, the sages concluded that's what he meant, that he can't come himself, but you don't need a time of danger in order to rely on the testimony of a single witness. And now that interpretation is included here in the elucidation. So you know that the country is confounded by army troops and I cannot come myself. I declare that I received this tradition from Rabban Gamliel the elder, that the court may allow a woman to remarry based on the testimony of a single witness. Rabbi Akiva continues his story, and when I came and presented the matter before Rabban Gamliel of Yavne, the grandson of Rabban Gamliel the elder, he rejoiced at my words, and he said, we have found a companion who agrees with Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, and since his lenient opinion is no longer the opinion of a lone sage, now we may rely upon it. As a result of this event, Rabban Gamliel remembered that people were murdered in Tel Arza. And Rabban Gamliel then allowed their wives to remarry based on only one witness. And from then onward, they established as protocol to allow a woman to remarry based on hearsay testimony, a slave's testimony, a woman's testimony, or a female slave's testimony. And Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yehoshua say, the court may not allow a woman to remarry based on only one witness. Rabbi Akiva says, the court may not allow a woman to marry based on the testimony of a woman, nor based on the testimony of a slave, nor based on the testimony of a female slave, nor based on the testimony of close relatives. Close relatives were not included, but the sages in the majority say we accept the testimony of a single witness, even if the single witness is a slave, a woman, etc., that whole list. And then we had some minority opinions of those who disagree. That's the Mishnah. Now the Gemara. Does Rabbi Akiva hold that the court may not allow a woman to remarry based on another woman's testimony? But isn't it taught in a Baraisa? Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says in the name of Rabbi Akiva, a woman is trusted to bring her own bill of divorce and affirm in court that it was written and signed properly. And that trust is based on the following kal v'chomer inference. Kal v'chomer, or a fortiori, right? That if we accept this in a major case, then of course we're going to accept it in a less extreme case. Or if we don't accept it in a minor case, then of course we're not going to accept it in a major case, right? That's the from small to large, or from large to small of the kal v'chomer. So what is the kal v'chomer here? If women, for example, a rival wife, whom the sages said are not deemed credible to say that another woman's husband died, right? There were 5 people. You accept a woman's testimony that a husband died unless that woman has a relationship with the widow, like if she's the mother-in-law or daughter-in-law or the rival wife, or 5 other types of relationships, in which case, because she would have a grudge possibly against the widow, we wouldn't accept the testimony. But so if women, for example, a rival wife whom the sages said are not deemed credible, those 5 categories, to say that another woman's husband died, are nevertheless trusted to bring their bills of divorce, then is it not logical that this woman herself, who is deemed credible to say that her husband died, should be trusted to bring her own bill of divorce? Now, in passing, that's about bills of divorce. But the totality of this statement indicates that according to Rabbi Akiva, it is specifically the women who the sages mentioned, the rival wife, the daughter-in-law, the mother-in-law, who are not deemed credible. But in general, a woman, even if she's a single witness, is deemed credible to testify that a man has died and permit the widow to remarry. Certainly the woman herself can do it, and so can another woman. So that would seem to contradict Rabbi Akiva saying that a woman is not relied on as a single witness. So which is it? Does Rabbi Akiva allow the lone woman or not? La kasha, this is not difficult. Here, where Rabbi Akiva disqualified the testimony of a woman, it was before they established the protocol that a woman may be permitted to remarry based on the basis of another woman's testimony. And there, where he allowed it, it was after they established this protocol. As we just saw, there was a story where Rabbi Akiva himself brought the testimony of Rabbi Nehemiah in Bavel back to Israel, which backed up Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava's position. And from then on, they accepted the testimony of a single witness to free a woman to remarry. And then they went even further and said it doesn't have to be an adult male. It can also be a woman. It can also be a slave. It can be a female maidservant, etc. And that concludes the Gemara on Mishnah number 7. Here's Mishnah number 8. They said to Rabbi Akiva, do we not rely upon a woman's testimony? After all, an incident occurred involving Levites who traveled to Tzoar, the city of date palms, and one of them became ill, and they brought him to an inn to rest while they continued on their travels. Upon their return from their travels, they stopped at the inn, and they said to the innkeeper, who was a woman, where is our friend? And she told them, he died, and I buried him. And based on her testimony, they allowed his wife to remarry. And shouldn't a priestess, meaning the daughter of a priest, or any Jewish woman who testifies that a man died, be deemed as credible as an innkeeper? And Rabbi Akiva said to them, when a woman will be as convincing as this innkeeper, then she shall be deemed credible. The innkeeper brought them the staff of the man who died, and his bag, and the Torah scroll that was in his possession, thereby providing supporting evidence to reinforce her claim. This incident must have happened before the position changed and Rabbi Akiva changed his own view in accordance with the majority. Now we're on 122b. That was Mishnah 8. Here's the Gemara. The Mishnah assumed that an innkeeper is less trustworthy than an ordinary woman, such that the rabbis argued that if the innkeeper was deemed credible, it should be obvious that an ordinary woman should be deemed credible. And the Gemara asks what was unfavorable about the innkeeper that made her less trustworthy than an ordinary woman. And Rav Kahana said she was a Gentile innkeeper, and she was therefore deemed credible only because she was speaking offhandedly when she said that the man died, and this is his staff, and this is his bag, and this is the grave in which I buried him. And similarly, Abba, the son of Rav Menyumi, the son of Chia, taught she was a Gentile innkeeper, and she was speaking offhandedly, saying that this is his staff, and this is his bag, and this is the grave in which I buried him. But didn't they say to her, where is our friend? And this indicates that she was answering their question rather than speaking offhandedly. And the Gemara explains, well, once she saw them, she cried. And they said to her, where is our friend? And then she said, he died and I buried him. Now, since she cried before being questioned, the crying was considered the beginning of her account, and she is considered to have been speaking offhandedly. She wasn't giving testimony, she was just relating what happened, and so she was believed. The sages taught an incident occurred involving a certain individual who came to testify before Rabbi Tarfon with regard to a woman whose husband had died. And he said to him, my son, how did you come to know testimony that the husband of this woman died? And he said, well, he and I were traveling on the road together, and a troop of soldiers chased after us. He hung onto an olive branch, and he tore it off to use as a heavy staff to intimidate the soldiers, and he forced the troop to withdraw. And after this heroic act, I said to him, admiring his courage, lion, which is in Hebrew, Aryeh, lion, may your strength continue to be firm. And he said to me, from where do you know that my name is Aryeh? And that is what they call me in my city. Yochanan, son of Rabbi Yehonatan, the lion from the village of Shechaiah. And after a while, he fell sick and he died. And consequently, the fellow traveler knew his name and could testify about him. And Rabbi Tarfon allowed the wife of Aryeh to remarry based on this testimony. Now the Gemara asks, but didn't Rabbi Tarfon require inquiry and interrogation of the witness? Isn't it taught in a Baraisa, an incident occurred involving a certain person who came before Rabbi Tarfon to present testimony that a woman's husband died. And he said to him, my son, how do you know this testimony? And he told him he and I were traveling on the road together, and a troop of soldiers chased after us, and he hung onto a fig branch. And he tore it off and forced the troop to withdraw by intimidating the soldiers with the branch. And I said to him, may your strength continue to be firm, lion. And he said to me, you have intuited my name well, for that is what they call me in my city. Yochanan, son of Yonatan, the lion from the village of Shechaiah. And the man concluded his story, and after a while he fell sick and died. And Rabbi Tarfon said to him, now note that the stories are very similar, but there's slight little differences. The man's father, in both cases, his name was, that they called him Aryeh, but that his name was actually Yochanan. But in the first, he's the son of Yehonatan, and in the second, he's the son of Yonatan. The first, he grabs an olive branch. The second, he grabs a fig branch. But it seems like the details might have been a little muddled, but it really sounds like the same story. Now, in the second version, Rabbi Tarfon said to him, he doesn't just believe the story, he says in order to check the story, did you not tell me that the dead man said that his name was Yochanan, the son of Yonatan, from the village of Shechaiah, which is called Lion? And he replied to him, no, rather, this is what I told you. He told me that he is called Yochanan, the son of Yonatan, the lion from the village of Shechaiah, the order of the second descriptor. And then Rabbi Tarfon cross-examined him in this manner 2 or 3 times, and the witness repeatedly kept his statements consistent. So Rabbi Tarfon allowed his wife to marry. Now, in this version of the story, the mere report of events was not sufficient. An interrogation of the witness to confirm that he's not lying or getting tripped up on his own story, that Rabbi Tarfon examined him with careful questioning to make sure he's not lying. So don't we require that? And the Gemara answers, well, actually, this is a dispute between Tanaim, the rabbis of the Mishna. As it is taught in a Baraisa, the court does not examine witnesses who give testimony concerning the marital status of women by means of the standard procedures of inquiry and interrogation. This is the statement of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Tarfon says, yes, the court does examine them with the standard procedures of inquiry and interrogation. So the Gemara comments, and what is it that they disagree about? They disagree about the statement of Rabbi Hanina. Because Rabbi Hanina said, by Torah law, both cases of monetary law and cases of capital law require scrutiny by means of inquiry and interrogation of witnesses. As it is stated, Leviticus 24:22, you shall have one law, indicating that the legal procedures must be the same for each area of Jewish law. Consequently, since inquiry and interrogation are required for capital cases, where if a person is found guilty, he's going to receive lashes or even be executed, therefore, inquiry and interrogation are required for cases of monetary law as well. And what is the and for what reason did the sages say that cases of monetary law do not require inquiry and interrogation of witnesses? Why? So as not to lock the door in the face of potential borrowers. If the procedures for litigation in cases of monetary law were too rigorous, people would be very hesitant to lend money. So they don't drag a witness over the coals in monetary cases the way they would over a capital case. Makes sense. And with regard to what do they disagree in the case of the testimony that allows a woman to remarry? So now we come back to our case. One sage, Rabbi Akiva, holds that since there is payment of the ketubah, the marriage contract, for the woman to take when her husband dies, it is considered to be like cases of monetary law, and therefore we don't have to cross-examine the witness so rigorously. And the other sage, Rabbi Tarfon, holds that since, based on this testimony, we're going to permit a woman who was married to this man who now we're hearing is dead, and while she's married to him, she's prohibited to every other man, and now based on this testimony, we're going to free her to go off and marry some other man. Now, if it turns out that the testimony was false and her husband is still alive, then she's going to be subject to a chorus penalty, potentially, because, she's a married woman who's now going to end up having sex with some other man who is not her husband. And if we permit a previously married woman to marry someone in the world, and if her previous husband is still alive, her subsequent relationship will be considered adultery, which is a capital offense. It is considered to be like cases of capital law, which require the inquiry and interrogation procedures. That's what they disagreed on. It seems like in one version, Rabbi Tarfon didn't cross-examine too closely. In another version, he did. Rabbi Akiva held that we don't need to. That actually concludes our journey through Tractate Yevamos and the laws of marriage. But they didn't end the tractate on this kind of, dark note of Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Tarfon disagreeing about whether a woman committed adultery or not. They want to leave us with one last uplifting thought. And so they add a little sugya, a little teaching, which is found actually at the end of 4 tractates of the Talmud. We encountered it in the first tractate, Brachos. And it also appears in Nazir, here in Yevamos, and in Karitot, or Karisos. And here it is. We read this in the prayer book every day. The tractate finishes on a positive note. Rabbi Elazar said that Rabbi Hanina said, Torah scholars increase peace in the world. As it is stated, all your children shall be taught of the Lord. They shall be taught by the Lord or taught about the Lord. And great shall be the peace of your children. And this indicates that because the children will be Torah scholars who are taught about the Lord and his Torah, they will live in great peace, and peace will thereby be increased for the entire world. You and I, learning together right now, are increasing peace in the world. That concludes our tractate. And like the conclusion of every tractate, we immediately read the Hadran. If we had 10, we would recite Kaddish, but we don't have a minyan here present in the room, so we go right to the Hadran. We shall return to you. We would do the Kaddish afterwards. At any rate, we're not going to do Kaddish, but here we go. We shall return to you, Tractate Yevamos, and your glory is upon us. Our thoughts are upon you, Tractate Yevamos, and your thoughts are upon us. We will not be forgotten from you, Tractate Yevamos, and you will not be forgotten from us, neither in this world nor in the world to come. We say that 3 times. We shall return to you, Tractate Yevamos, and your glories upon us. Our thoughts are upon you, Tractate Yevamos, and your thoughts are upon us. We will not be forgotten from you, Tractate Yevamos, and you will not be forgotten from us, neither in this world nor in the world to come. We shall return to you, Tractate Yevamos, and your glories upon us. Our thoughts are upon you, Tractate Yevamos, and your thoughts are upon us. We will not be forgotten from you, Tractate Yevamos, and you will not be forgotten from us, neither in this world nor in the world to come. May it be your will, Lord, our God and God of our ancestors, that your Torah will be our avocation in this world and will accompany us to the world to come. Hanina bar Papa, Rame bar Papa, Nachman bar Papa, Achai bar Papa, Abba Mari bar Papa, Rafram bar Papa, Rachish bar Papa, Surcha bar Papa, Ada bar Papa, Daru bar Papa, the 10 sons of Rabbi Papa. Please, Lord our God, make the words of your Torah sweet in our mouths and in the mouths of your people, the house of Israel, so that we, our descendants, and their descendants, if we're so blessed to have grandchildren, and the descendants of your people, the house of Israel, may all know your name and study your Torah for its own sake. Your commandments make me wiser than my enemies, for they are ever with me. Let my heart be undivided by your statutes, in order that I may not be put to shame. I will never forget your precepts, for with them you have quickened me. Blessed are you, O Lord. Teach me your statutes. Amen, amen, amen. Selah forever. We give thanks before you, Lord our God and God of our ancestors, that you have placed our lot among those who sit in the study hall, and that you have not given us our portion among those who sit idly on street corners. We rise early and they rise early. We rise early to pursue matters of Torah, and they rise early to pursue frivolous matters. We toil and they toil. We toil and receive a reward, and they toil and do not receive a reward. We run and they run. We run to the life of the world to come, and they run to the pit of destruction, as it is stated. But you, God, will bring them down into the pit of destruction. Men of blood and deceit shall not live out half their days. But as for me, I will trust in you. Here's the last paragraph. May it be your will, Lord my God, just as you have assisted me in completing Tractate Yevamos, so assist me to begin other tractates and books and conclude them, to learn and to teach, to observe and to perform, and to fulfill all the teachings of your Torah with love. And may the merit of all Tanaim and Amoraim and Torah scholars stand for me and my descendants, so that the Torah will not move from my mouth and from the mouths of my descendants and the descendants of my descendants forever. And may the verse, when you walk it shall lead you, when you lie down it shall watch over you, and when you awaken it shall talk with you, be fulfilled in me. For in the Torah your days shall be multiplied, and the years of your life shall be increased. Length of days is in her right hand, and in her left are riches and honor. May the Lord give strength to his people. The Lord will bless his people with peace. Amen. We have a wonderful visitor here. Come in, Nina. All right. We've concluded Yevamos. And before we do anything else, because we concluded a tractate, we open the next tractate. Suvos.
We did it! I can't believe it! Such a challenging tractate.
Not better here. There we go.
I don't have to be heard, but I don't want to be covered up.
Absolutely.
Which I basically am.
All right, here's just the first line of the first Mishna
Okay, there we go.
of Tractate Kesuvos. Mishnah number 1 on page 2. A virgin is married on Wednesday, and a widow on Thursday. Why? Find out tomorrow at noon Pacific, the regular Friday time.
So can you believe we made it through? I guess this is considered like one of the, if not the most challenging tractates.
Many Daf Yomi journeys have died in Tractate Yevamos.
I'm not smart enough for this tractate. I was basically in a fog the whole time. It was very hard for me to follow and just keep my attention engaged. So Kol HaKavod, enormous honor to everybody who's either been here from the beginning, January 2020, or people who've been here from the beginning of this tractate, or people who are just showing up today. Welcome. This is not easy stuff. It's very rewarding, though, to have made so much progress. And I'm just glad we got to the end of it. And I want to ask you guys something, please. So, Sal, I think you've noticed, is kind of under the weather. He's really not feeling well. He's been kind of sick all week. And as you may know, as Sal may have mentioned 1 or 20 times, he's going to be coaching the Maccabi golf team in Israel and he's leaving on Sunday. He's going to be there for 2 weeks, and it's a really big, first of all, traveling all the way to Israel, and second of all, being a coach. And so we're really hoping that he feels better. So please, please, daven, pray for Sal. Please, God, may Sal be completely healed very, very soon, and may he get on that plane to Israel feeling fantastic, and may everything go even better than he could have imagined.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, honey. Thank you so much. All right, let's make our l'chaim.
Let's do it.
Here we go. To the students.
Yay!
You are all not just students and children of your parents, you are also builders of peace, as Sharon just wrote in the comments,
Yay.
riffing on the that final line. It's beautiful. And may we merit to complete many more tractates and build much more peace in the world.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shakol nihei b'divro.
Amen.
Amen. L'chaim.
Whew. Very nice.
Wow.
Wow.
I normally think
Amazing.
of Blanton's as very, very smooth, and it is smooth. But
I mean,
I'm
this
so
may
hoarse.
actually be a historic moment for all of human history. I don't think there's been a group of such diverse people from such diverse places and backgrounds and everything to finish like this incredibly difficult tractate that even people who have been learning Torah their entire life sometimes can't make it through. So this is like pretty historic, in my opinion, what we have accomplished here.
Amen. What did I just see? That Bill is tonight's libation here is Creek, a cherry lambic beer. Oh, that sounds good. What are people drinking?
What is a
What are people
cherry
drinking?
lambic? I'm not sure
Shandora is making her l'chaim with Ace Pineapple Craft Cider.
Ooh, that sounds good.
nice.
Pineapple cider, I never heard of that.
Yes.
Love it.
Yes. Bill says, this too shall pass. That is the one piece of wisdom that is eternal.
Indeed.
All right. Renee is having peach juice and vodka.
Ooh.
That sounds nice. Scott says, Sal, this is a challenging tractate, and yes, many stop here. Thank you for getting us through it. Thank you for
Thanks,
doing
Scott.
the work, Scott. Steven is having peach schnapps.
Ooh.
Tom says, no booze for me tonight, but have some water. You can always make a l'chaim on water. Entirely legit.
Okay.
Paula says, thank you both, dear teachers. I might sneak a wee bit of wine. Sharon is having Texas bourbon. This all
Oh, yeah,
sounds
Sharon, I
really
see
fun.
you're in Texas.
Right? Not New Jersey,
So I guess
but
bourbon,
Texas.
I thought bourbon was from Kentucky, but I guess there's a whole other thing of Texas bourbon.
Sure. I think
Maybe
there's Utah
maybe the bourbon
too.
you sent us, Sharon, is from Texas. Rabbi Bourbon, I'm not sure. Anyway, gotta check.
Paula says,
Whole new
here
world.
till the end.
Yay.
Amen. Melissa, Baron Herzog Bordeaux.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Highly recommend to anybody if you're ever in the Southern California area. You start like maybe if you fly into LA and then you drive a little north up the coast to Oxnard and you go to Tierra del
Tierra del
Sur.
Sur, yeah.
Tierra del Sur, which is the
winery.
The Herzog Winery has a gourmet kosher restaurant. Amazing.
So good.
So good. And you can get
And a wine
amazing
tasting
wine and
room
wine
and-
tasting and take some bottles home with you. It's a great experience. Sharon's saying the Rabbi Bourbon is from Kentucky.
Okay.
Tom made a l'chaim on orange Gatorade.
Yay!
I'll
better
be
than
drinking
water.
some of that in Israel, that's for sure.
Are they gonna? If you win, are they gonna put that whole dump it all on you?
No, I don't think you do that with the golf coach.
The Maccabee golf team.
Yeah. I guess I'll be like, if you watch the Ryder Cup, right, and sort of like the captain is riding around in the cart and, trying to give people a little bit of chizik, a little bit of, encouragement and enthusiasm.
I think Sal is very well cast in this role, right? I mean, you may not be the most or at all experienced as a golf coach, but you've definitely got the, pump 'em up vibe.
I got the pump 'em up vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been definitely motivating the troops. They all live in different cities,
cool.
but we've got a WhatsApp chat.
Do you know any of them personally?
I've met a few of the guys personally.
Okay.
And I think it's going to be a great experience. And I do definitely think that part of my job is to be, they're team Talmudist. They're not, these are Jews going to compete in Israel, but most of them don't have too much, connection to Judaism and to Torah. Not like a really strong connection. So God willing, I can, help contextualize the experience for them while we're there. And maybe
are you going to be able?
Are
you going to try to go live from the golf course at some point? Well, no, he's not going to be able to teach the class.
I'm not going to be able to teach the class.
Maybe if there's good Wi-Fi and you have a chance, people.
Yeah, I'm definitely planning to post pictures and maybe little videos and just like the last time we were in Israel. Opening ceremony, I will go live if there's enough of a Wi-Fi link. Not a Wi-Fi, but there's going to be so many thousands and thousands of people with their phones. But I'll certainly post pictures. With God's help. But I forgot what I was going to say. But anyway, I'm excited to get to Israel. Oh, like when we were there in 2019. I'm sure that there's going to be stuff inspired by what we're seeing. Now, we've talked about Caesarea here quite a bit because Caesarea was a Talmud learning center in ancient Israel. It's named after Caesar, right? It has a Roman name, but it was a place of tremendous learning. Post-Second Temple period, and that's where we're going to be. So hopefully I can share some photos and images from the ruins there in Caesarea, which is like there's the golf course and then the road and then the ruins and then the ocean. So
okay, that sounds good. One golf course in the entire country.
Yeah, one golf course in the whole place. If people would like, share maybe something a takeaway. What's a takeaway from this Tractate Yevamos? It's funny because in Spanish, this is one of those tractates that in Spanish, not vámonos, pero Yevamos. Yevamos means, not Yavamos, Yevamos. It means we take. That's what it literally means.
Yevamos.
Right, Yevamos. We bring with us, right? So what do we take away from us? What do we take with us as we leave Yevamos? One idea is that, remember that much of this tractate was an expansion of law, of settled Jewish law to protect women. It's still a heavily patriarchal system, and we see all the time what the impact of that is. But nonetheless, originally, a woman would not be free to remarry unless they could establish the death of her husband by two witnesses, like anything else required adjudication with two witnesses. And the sages, sort of found, the loopholer Rebbe stepped in, and they were able to create an expansion to protect women from that fate. Again, very patriarchal system, but in the context of the world.
Very patriarchal system, but maybe a little less patriarchal than the other systems at the time.
Like a lot less.
A lot less patriarchal, yes.
Yeah, so, a lot less. It was an incredible expansion of protection for women that came in the world there. Yes. And right, so Sharon is saying, we do say Kaddish D'Rabbanan after Amar Rabbi Elazar. Right, in the morning prayers, exactly. That we have this teaching, right, that Amar Rabbi Elazar, in the name of Rabbi Hanina, that Torah scholars increase peace in the world, and then we say the Kaddish D'Rabbanan, right, which is the Kaddish, which includes asking God to watch over the Torah scholars, the rabbis, the teachers in the world. Stephen says his takeaway is don't die early, have children, and have only one wife.
Yeah, there you go. There you have it.
You got it. You comprehended the tractate.
Only one wife, at a time. Yeah.
Yes. All right. How about you, honey? Do you have a takeaway?
Just that, what's interesting is that, you only need one witness if she saw her own husband. But what was it if the co-wife saw it, but she didn't? If two brothers were each married. It's the same situation, but one wife can remarry and the other can't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So, they couldn't open it willy-nilly, right? And so you see also the limits of judicial fiat, right? At the end of the day, they were able to find basis in law to create an expansion, but they couldn't go beyond the law, right? They weren't going to twist the Torah law to be something that it wasn't in order to fit even the exigencies of a difficult case. I remember in law school, we learned the saying, I'm sure everyone who's been to law school or even not in law school has heard this saying, tough cases make bad law.
Yeah, I've heard that.
You know, and that's what it means. Tom says this tractate really demonstrated Talmudic logic.
Yeah.
Kelsa says, I take how fragile family life is. It takes purpose and care to grow your family. We think our husband, wife, children live forever, but that's not the case. Life can change in a snap. That is a wonderful takeaway.
Beautiful.
And really one we should take to heart. You know, it's just, nothing is promised. Nothing is given.
And the way that the rabbis of the Talmud are not squeamish, you know, like, was something we were meaning to do and everybody really should do for a long time, which was like make a will and a living will, and we just pushed it off for years. It's like nobody wants to think about it. Nobody wants to, you want to kind of just pretend that's not an option, a possibility, God forbid. We finally did it. We finally, you know, after years, finally did it. But like the rabbi, like they're not afraid of talking about, you know, big issues, intense subjects, and they do it kind of like without emotion.
The only stupid question is the one you didn't ask, right? They'll ask it. They'll always ask the question. Lucy says, I was struck that there was care to protect women, especially minor girls, that had been betrothed by their families.
Yeah, that's so nuts. People betrothed by their families when they're little.
Paula says, this was an excellent reality check. Very good. Very good. Okay. Oh, and Paula says, a will is a loving gift.
Yeah, exactly right. Just so.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, I remember your father.
He planned everything. Yeah.
As he neared the end, he was so careful. Even when he was in pain, even when it was difficult for him, he made arrangements about everything.
Yeah.
It's very much an act of love.
Yeah.
Just a reminder, so we'll have class tomorrow, and we'll do the first page of Tractate Yevamos. And then we're on hiatus for 17 days until Tuesday, July 26th. I hope you'll keep reading a page a day yourself, do your daf.
That's ambitious.
You know, you can always check out some of the other teachers on All Daf. That's an app that's you can find for, I know for iPhone, probably for Android as well, from the Orthodox Union. They're amazing teachers, gifted teachers. They mix a lot of Hebrew and Aramaic into their teaching.
A lot is an understatement, yeah.
You know.
You should check it out because
but you should still check it out.
Like that's a kind of like the real, authentic kind of Talmud study.
Yeshivish teaching. It's
Yeshivish. So you can kind of compare it to sound.
They speak Yeshivish. That's what it's called. You know,
right.
There's so much jargon.
Right.
But at any
it's
rate,
hard
if
for
you're
me
reading,
to follow, but you know, we can all get some of it, and it's just like that's the traditional, really like the much more inner group way of teaching it. That's not accessible to most people.
But my pledge to you is that I will keep reading and taking notes every day and then just selecting highlights from those 17 days so that when I get back on the 26th, we can do a highlight show.
So how long, you think you're not in one show?
Yeah, I'm just thinking as I'm talking. In the past, I've done that, but we've really only had 1 week hiatuses. Yeah. With 17 days, maybe we'll do 2 days of highlight.
See how it works.
And then get back on track, something like that. But at any rate, we have a regular class tomorrow. And then again on Tuesday, the 26th.
Tomorrow's the last one.
At 6 p.m., right? Tomorrow's the last day, and then 2.5 weeks. Caroline says, hi, Nina, need to catch up. Links to the apps. Oh, yeah, we'll put that in the comments. But it's called All Daf by OU at the App Store.
And what's his name?
Bornstein? Rav Gav, he's on there.
Oh, Rav Gav is amazing, and Shruly Bornstein, is he something
Shruly
else?
Bornstein is one that I like.
Yeah, great. Have you ever, Rav Gavriel, I actually don't even know his last name, but he's just known as Rav Gav, and Shruly Bornstein, just amazing Torah teachers.
All right, my friends, that's what we've got, and with God's help, we'll be together again tomorrow, the regular Friday time, noon Pacific. Have a great night. but we'll be right here when you return. That's so sweet.